Welcome to Live Like an Acrobat. I'm your host, Shenea Stiletto, two-time World Acrobatic Gymnastics Champion, USA Gymnastics Hall of Fame member, and Cirque artist. I'm also an advocate for rain. On each episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast, I discuss acro handstanding in terms of training tips, coaching, and I explore circus and acrobatic gymnastics competitive life as I have lived it from past to current, and I theorize on what the future may bring in these fields. On each episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast, I will bring you insight through my own experiences, which are rooted in a perspective built on social justice advocacy and how these important issues continue to intersect between the circus arts and acrobatics competitive world at large. On each episode, I have the pleasure of discussing these various narratives with a variety of fascinating special guests. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast. Please consider a donation to encourage the continuation and evolution of this podcast. The details of how to donate are located in the show notes. Please make sure to check out the Circuspreneurblog.com for extended conversations and interactive content of each episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast. I am available for handstand private sessions and workshops through aerialfitbodies.com, and in a new announcement, I'm also a Circo certified trainer. Check out Circo.co, a new circus school online international platform where you can learn hand balancing with me and learn so many other circus disciplines from trained cirque performers from all over the world. Check out my new vlog series, Think Like an Acrobat, which is available exclusively on Circus Talk as a pro series. It's offering pro tips to professionals within the circus arts industry. On this episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast, I have the absolute honor of interviewing director of the King Charles Unicycle Troupe, Kip Jones. Kip Jones, at the age of 15 years old, joined the first all-black circus act to perform with Ringling Bros in Barnum Bailey Circus, better known as the renowned King Charles Unicycle Troupe, or KCT. The original troupe made its triumphant debut in 1969 and performed with Ringling for 18 years as the longest-running act during the Feld family era. Kip Jones has been a second-generation troupe member for 25-plus years. KCT is a group of exceptional, creative athletes who play an unbelievable game of high-energy basketball on unicycles. They exhibit skills ranging from slam dunks, dribbling, passing, jumping rope, to acrobatics. A native of New York City, Kip Jones has endured the responsibility to carry the ball for KCT and continue its legacy, teaching youth in the community the importance of building character on unicycles, based upon discipline, direction, and ethical principles. In addition to traveling around the globe on one wheel, Kip Jones has also worked as a sales and marketing manager in various private sectors of entertainment, advertisement, and film and TV programming in non-theatrical markets. Wizardry performed on the one wheel. A dazzling display of agility, balance, and high-speed hilarity perched atop the unicycle. Illusionists creating a flurry of fast-paced fun from New York City. That is the King Charles Troupe at its best. The King Charles Troupe is a group of young men out of the Southeast Bronx who display an unbelievable game of high-extreme basketball on unicycles. Cultivating his idea to utilize unicycles as a tool to keep kids involved in something positive and constructive, founder Jerry King became an inspiration to his neighborhood by forming a community-based unicycle club for youth. The KCT will keep you on the edge of your seat with their hilarious hijinks and comedic antics. Their extraordinary riding ability and world-class skill never cease to excite audiences of all ages. Their brand of fast-paced basketball and comedy continue to be an enormous favorite with audiences of all ages. Witness the game of basketball like you've never seen it before. To be entertained is to see the King Charles Troupe on stage taking the art of unicycling to another extreme level. The late founder of the King Charles Troupe, Jerry King, did not have an easy road nor an easy life, something the youth joining his troupe could relate to. Jerry King survived a stint in prison, was a soldier on the battlefields of World War II, and through a newfound sense of redemption and purpose, started a family that would go on to bring about the realization of a spark that was lit from within during a chance encounter with the circus he had years before as a young boy of color. My guest in this episode, Kip Jones, discussed with me the power of second chances and opportunity if it is given to a person to evolve in their life and take a chance on what they are truly inspired to do. That's Jerry King. Inspired by his boyhood memories of the circus and unicycles, and then as a father who sought to bestow this enchantment onto his own son, Charles King, out of which the King Charles Unicycle Troupe was born. Because the King Charles Unicycle Troupe is so legendary as the first all-black act to join Ringling Brothers, I thought I would take the opportunity to salute a recent historic first in American history. And that's the election of Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first woman VP and the first black and woman of color to hold the position in the history of the United States. And in a nod to the grassroots efforts that made this possible, I salute African-American Stacey Abrams, former Georgia gubernatorial candidate, who through her program Fair Fight has funded and trained voter protection teams in 20 battleground states leading up to this year's election. I also wanted to highlight the silver lining of this year's election in a nod to the conversation that I had with the director of the King Charles Unicycle Troupe in this episode. Kip Jones and I spoke about the silver linings that are always there, even in the midst of confusion and challenging times. A new Mississippi flag without Confederate images was approved by majority voters. The design has a magnolia encircled by stars and the phrase, "In God We Trust." The new flag pays tribute to the Native Americans with a gold star made of 5 diamond shapes. The diamond motif is important to the Choctaw culture. Mississippi voters have overwhelmingly approved a ballot measure overturning a Jim Crow-era electoral college provision for determining governors and other elected officials. The two-step process for selecting statewide office holders has helped preserve white supremacy in Mississippi politics since the law was enacted in 1890. African Americans make up nearly 40% of Mississippi's population. Mississippi voters sent a message to the world that we are moving forward together, former Mississippi Supreme Court Justice Reuben Anderson said in a statement. Alabama voters have approved an amendment that would begin the process of deleting racist language from the state's 119-year constitution, which was approved to entrench white supremacy as state law during the Jim Crow era. Voters in the majority-white conservative state rejected similar proposals twice since 2000, but the measure passed easily in balloting this election. Colorado elected its first Muslim-American lawmaker, Iman Jure. Mauree Turner became the first Muslim lawmaker elected to the Oklahoma State House. Sarah McBride's victory in Delaware has made her the highest-ranking trans official in the U.S. and the county's first transgender state senator. Richie Torres will be the first Afro-Latino gay member of the U.S. Congress after capturing New York's 15th district. In Vermont, Taylor Small, 26, has become the state's first openly transgender legislator after winning 41% of the vote to make it to the House of Representatives, making her the 5th out-trans state legislator in the House and in the U.S. In Kansas, Stephanie Byers is set to become the state's first transgender legislator by winning a state House seat. Cori Bush has become the first black woman elected to represent the state of Missouri in Congress. Marilyn Strickland won her election in Washington's 10th congressional district and will be the first Korean-American woman ever elected to Congress, as well as the first African-American person to represent Washington at the federal level. High-profile lawyer and human rights activist Anya Irma Rivera Lassen won her election to the Puerto Rico Senate, making her the first black, openly lesbian Puerto Rican to become an elected lawmaker. New Mexico became the first state in U.S. history to elect only women of color as members of Congress. Indian-American lawyer and immigration rights advocate Raj Kumar, 38, will become one of the first 2 South Asians voted into the lower house of the New York State Legislature. Please welcome to the show my guest, director of the King Charles Unicycle Troupe, Kip Jones. Hi, Kip. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, Sheena. Thank you. How are you today?
I'm doing super well, and thank you so much for asking.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
You are truly carrying on the brilliant legacy of the King Charles Troupe, and I love how over time the King Charles Troupe has also expanded into the Queen Charles Troupe too. How wonderful is that?
That's another story to tell as we get into the podcast.
I'm looking forward to hearing it. This is such a powerful day for us to speak, Kip. We are one day after the election.
Yeah, right?
I'm not sure if you've seen it, but Veronica Blair, who connected us, put out a powerful video urging citizens to vote.
And, I did see it.
Oh, you did see it? Yes.
Yeah,
in it, she shed
really
light.
great.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, she shed light on the incredible life and activism of Ida B. Wells in that.
It was really, really something informative and something I definitely encourage for those who haven't seen it to definitely, take a peek at it if they get an opportunity.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, the King Charles Troupe was brought into Ringling Brothers not long after the Civil Rights Act was signed into law and the Voting Rights Acts too, giving African American citizens the equal rights and equal opportunity to vote. And unfortunately and presently, we've seen how so many of those voting rights have continued to be threatened and eroded since then. I often like to bridge the gap between social justice issues and circus in the podcast. And so can you speak to how, in your mind, circus and societal change intersect, Kip, and do you think that the King Charles Troupe would have still become the first all-black troupe to perform in Ringling Brothers had it not been for the passage of these momentous laws?
Yeah, indeed. So just to give you a little background history on the troupe, the founder, Jerry King, as a small boy back in Tampa, Florida, always used to remember when the circus used to come by his town. And he never had an opportunity to go see the circus. So one summer when the circus was in town, he just happened to sneak into the circus. And they used to have what was known as circus sidewalls. Those are the circus tents that he snuck under. And all he remembers from that experience that he tells us, that he used to tell us was he remembers the elephants and the man on the high wire riding a unicycle. He didn't remember anything else in the circus other than those two fascinations. And he always wondered, why he never saw any colored kids. And this was back around 1914 in the Deep South back then, why he never saw any colored kids on the unicycle. So, as he got older, he kind of kept this passion. And one day, he came across a bicycle shop in Florida that had a unicycle in the window. So he went into the bicycle shop to, kind of ask the owner, some information and questions about it on how he could, maybe purchase or learn how to ride. And to his amazement, this bicycle owner made it firm and known that he would never be able to the opportunity to be able to get hold of this exotic bike called a unicycle. So even from an early age back then, Jerry King, first probably came into his awareness of discrimination back then as a young boy. So as Jerry King, grew into a young man, he went over to the World War II, served over in the armed forces, came back with a Purple Heart. Then he migrated up to New York City, where he met his wife, Alma King, and they moved into a small apartment in the South Bronx on Clinton Avenue. The address was actually 1400 Clinton Avenue, which was right down the block from a park called Katona Park. So as life, moved on for Jerry King, him and his wife had a small son. His son's name was Charles. And Jerry King was always concerned with the social evils in the neighborhood surrounding his son and the kids in the community. And he always remembered, back to his passion as a child, because he was a bicycle enthusiast. He always, kept that passion of the unicycle in the back of his mind. So as Jerry King, one day took his son into the hallways of their Bronx apartment and taught his son Charles King how to ride a unicycle. Now, mind you, none of the kids in the neighborhood knew Charles was in the hallway learning how to ride a unicycle. So Mr. King, Charles's father, taught him for a full year, how to ride a unicycle. And then that following summer, he brought Charles out into the park where he was able to show all the kids all of his new unicycling skills. And the name of this park, again, was Katona Park, which was right down the block from their apartment complex. And from that day on, this is when the kids all gravitated and were fascinated by Charles riding a unicycle. And they all, scurried to Mr. King, asking and begging, if he could teach them as well how to ride a unicycle. Now, Mr. King knew this unicycle was going to be something special in the community because, one, there were no colored kids in the South Bronx riding a unicycle. And he knew this could be something that could potentially, steer kids away from a lot of the social evils that were in the community at the time. So he laid down some dog rule principles before kids could learn how to ride. They had to respect their parents. They had to do well in school. They had to help clean up the neighborhood block where they lived on. And once, the kids started to, get these ground dog rules and principles down, Mr. King started to teach everyone in the neighborhood. And then he found himself, having over 100 plus kids in the neighborhood riding a unicycle. And this is when he first started a unicycle club called the Charles Riders. Now it's important to remember that name because as we move on, it's going to, migrate into the King Charles Troupe's name. So the troupe started to do a lot of, neighborhood variety opportunities like block parties, social things that would, help benefit other kids in the community. And one day they got the call by a young man by the name of Bill Menson, who actually just happened to stroll in the park one day and see all these guys riding unicycles in Katona Park. So Bill came over to Mr. King one day and said, hey, Mr. King, Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus is in New York this month, and I think it would be a good idea for the guys to go down and maybe audition and try out for the circus. So this audition took place, if my memory serves me right, April 14th, which was actually 10 days after the assassination of Martin Luther King. And they auditioned on the sidewalks of Madison Square Garden for then producer Irvin Fell and talent coordinator Trolley Rodine. So it was about five of the guys from the neighborhood at the time because no one else was around. So only 5 guys went down to audition on the sidewalks of Madison Square Garden in 1968, again on April 14th. And then they got the word back from the circus. The next following year, 1969, they made their triumphant debut as the first all-black circus act in 1969 for Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus. So that was one of the great, features, that the troupe was able to overcome at the time, and breaking the color barrier as the first black act in the center ring of the of Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus.
Wow. How radical was it for the Feld family at that time to have an all-black act in Ringling Brothers? And was there still pushback at that time? And did the troupe have difficulties in performing and working as the first all-black act?
Yeah, well, you have to remember back then in 1968, Ringling Brothers only had European overseas acts. And the Feld family, being a Jewish, forward Jewish thinking businessman, knew at the time, especially with the unfortunate situation of the assassination of Martin Luther King, that potentially introducing an all-black act into his show would hopefully, be some type of, how should I say, calmness for, the community. And much to his surprise, the troupe was received very well from the audience as being introduced as the first all-black act. Now, the other hurdle was being accepted by the other performers, again, who were mainly more European in nationalities. But, over time, as the team got more familiar with the cast, the crew of the show, they then started to be able to form, a friendship bond between these other performers who, at first did not welcome them because, of the color of their skin and black acts really not being known, for any type of circus artistry at the time. So, again, they made really groundbreaking efforts at the time. One, again, being the first all black act with Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus, and two, breaking the color barrier with the current performers on the show, being accepting as equals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just so profound to be at the helm of that during that time, and like you said, during such a precarious time as well, after the assassination of Dr. King. I mean, wow, how poignant was that for the Feld family, and then for the troupe itself. To be a part of something so public and so open, and so I think communal in its engagement as well. Mm-hmm. That must have felt, I think, like you said, like such a presence of peace building in many ways in trying to unite. I wanted to ask you, Kip, what can you tell listeners about how you became part of the King Charles Troupe? And when did your journey begin in starting to actually carry on the legacy of the King Charles Troupe as you have for so many years now? How did you get involved and what was your path?
Sure. So my journey actually started with the troupe at the age of 15. One day after school, I was hanging out with a buddy of mine, and he had mentioned to me that he was going to go try out for a sports team. So, I automatically, defaulted and, said and thought of, he's probably going to go out for a football or basketball team or baseball team. I'll just tag along, to see how things go. And we both walked into this gym on 163rd Street. And off of Park Avenue in the Bronx, where all of these guys were doing these amazing things on a unicycle. And from that point on, I kind of fell in love, and I was hook, line, and sinker, since then. And mind you, before I learned to ride a unicycle, I actually was a gymnast in my junior high school because I did floor exercise.
Oh.
So I did a lot of tumbling routines. And so that's what kind of helped me become a member of the second generation, because the second generation was primarily all gymnasts before they learned how to ride unicycles. We even actually had Russian teachers come in and teach us teeterboard and floor exercises. And their names were Nina and Mr. Fadin. And they were actually from the Russian Moscow Circus, and they had defected to the United States of America back in the 60s. So I'm not sure how they came into contact with the troupe, but they formed a relationship with Charles King, who was the troupe leader at the time. Then we were starting to learn how to do teeterboard because we were actually slated to be the first Black teeterboard act with Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus. So that's why we were going through that whole routine and exercise and rehearsals. But unfortunately, other things came up that were more important, unfortunately, on the performance side. So that kind of fell by the wayside, unfortunately. But for me, being part of the second generation was something exciting for me because it actually gave us the opportunity to go on the road with the original troupe, learn a lot of the behind the scenes on how Ringling Brothers and the troupe interacted regarding their performance in the center ring. So we used to go out during the summers, and practice. We would work concessions during the day, sell either popcorn, candy, programs, and at night we were rehearsing, 3 to 4 hours each night. So whenever we got the call to go into the routine, into the act, we were ready at a performance level that was required in order to go into the show. So, again, for me, it's been a privilege to have been a second generation member, to be able to, pass on what we learned to other kids in the community. Again, because this was originally, formed to, as a social entity to help kids build character, discipline, and become model, citizens in our country. So, I'm very thankful that I've had that opportunity. We are now in a 5th generation of King Charles Unicycle riders. We were also probably one of the longest running acts with Ringling. I believe we had a running stint of about 19 seasons straight with the Ringling Brothers before the 3rd, 4th, and 5th generations had joined Ringling. So, again, I felt blessed and honored, and, hopefully I can be able to pass on, this legacy to the next generation of kids coming up in the community.
Wow. What was the impact of the King Charles Troupe on the circus community at large over its many years in not just circus entertainment, but entertainment in general all over the world, Kip?
I think from my aspect, the team has had such a profound impact, not just on the entertainment side, but just from a community standpoint where, a lot of the kids that were learning or that came into the bosom of the troupe might have, went other ways in life and not certain where those roads would have wound up. But, being part of the Unicycle Troupe, again, we've had the opportunity to travel, all over the world on one wheel. We've had the opportunity to work with performers unlike anything you've had the opportunity to see in the world. It's also given us the opportunity to, respect others' cultures. Because that's another good thing, and I'm sure you're very aware of this, performing, in different nationality shows that had different nationalities, is that, you get to learn each other's languages a little bit, cultures, food, and you have a profound sense of, respecting, just because we're different doesn't mean that, we look down or we're better than any other performer. We all, have different aspects, dreams, again, different cultures. And, we've learned to, be able to respect that just from the travels that we've done all around the world.
Yes, I understand that. I think it's a really beautiful thing. I mean, I think it's the biggest education that I've definitely had in my life, traveling all over the world and being amongst so many different cultures. I think the education in traveling in the way that we have as circus performers is priceless. And
yes.
Most of the time when people ask me certain things, they'll say, how do you know that? Like, how do you know these things? I'm like, well, I've lived with people from that country and I've worked with them for years. And, we have such a connection to Eastern Europeans. And, a lot of my trainers were born and raised in the Soviet Union. So there's so much like cross culture that I think is so transformative that happens for all of us traveling and doing what we love and getting the opportunity to be in the world and be educated. And then I think in turn become educators like you have with the King Charles Troupe.
Right, exactly. We're not the only ones that live in this corner of the world. There's so many other distinctive, people of color that are out there, and it should be like a curricular requirement. When you're in school, that you should travel abroad to experience life outside of the United States.
Oh yes, I second that so strongly. I don't think that like who I am today would not be possible. And I think like who we are today are very well-rounded human beings, but I would never have been able to get that from a book. I got that from engagement with others that don't think like me, don't look like me, don't love like me, don't faith like me, and joining and performing and doing something beautiful together and understanding things about one another. So I think that's such a profound thing. I wanted to skip back a little bit over to the performances also of the King Charles Troupe. And I thought it was really interesting that the troupe began performing with the legendary Tiger act Siegfried and Roy in Vegas. And I wanted to ask, how did that happen, Kip? And how was that? I mean, that's pretty amazing, incredible.
Yeah, so how that came about is Irvin Feld and his son Kenneth Feld, were forming a Vegas show, back in the late 80s, early 90s. And somehow or another, the troupe's name just came up in conversation as, being a possible, feature in the show. So the original troupe was taken over to Las Vegas to join Siegfried and Roy. And then the second generation stayed behind to continue the legacy and relationship with the Feld family. So at that time, we had two troupes up and running, one in Vegas and one on the road with Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus. And the troupe had the opportunity to be part of Beyond Belief, which was the name of the show that showcased at the Frontier Hotel in Las Vegas. And they were one of the longest running acts, one of the longest running shows in Vegas for over 10 years. And, although I didn't have the opportunity to perform on that show with Siegfried and Roy, I did have the opportunity to meet them on occasion, a couple of times during our visits to Vegas to see the troupe. And, they allowed the team the opportunity to be able to be showcased on another platform, if you will. Because if I remember, I think the troupe might have been the only Black act on this Vegas trip during the late 80s, early 90s, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that the stories that I hear from their engagement with Siegfried and Roy and all the other cast members was just an unbelievable opportunity for them to participate and be featured with the masters of illusion, the great Siegfried and God bless the late Roy Horn.
Yes. Yes, we've lost him not so long ago.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Just such a trail. You guys were such trailblazers. The troupe did so many firsts, or responsible for so many firsts, with so many other legendary performances. Just so special, and something very important to highlight and to commend. And I love hearing about how all of these things came together. Just, you never would have imagined that the King Charles Troupe was also like performing with Siegfried and Roy. It's like,
right.
like, you just never know in this industry, like, where you're going to end up, and how different acts and different strains of the industry will come together. And I think that continues to show just how unique we all show up in this business too, and how you can do so many different kind of partnerships and interdependent connections.
Exactly.
Which makes it so fruitful and so interesting and so fun, and so dynamic. And but really, I mean, again, very leading for those times, doing that so many years ago already. I mean, again, I can't say have we had that much of the same even now. With crossover with acts combined in that way.
Well, it's funny. It's one. Sorry not to cut you off, but one unique partnership is actually how the unicycle and the basketball came to be in the troupe.
That was so funny, because that was my next question.
Oh, was it? Okay, that's ironic.
Perfect.
So perfect segue, right?
Yes.
So I would probably say this would have to have been around 1958 in Katona Park in the South Bronx. One day while the guys were practicing on the basketball court, some of their routines, a basketball just happened to roll over to one of the guys, and his name was Albert Owens. We used to call him Cold Cuts. And he was actually affectionately known to us as Uncle Al. And but back to the story, a basketball just happened to roll towards his way, and he picked it up on his unicycle, shot it in the hoop, and that's how the basketball and unicycle were forged for the King Charles Troupe and made its identity.
Wow.
So from that fateful day in 1958 in the park is how they established their identity as a one-wheeling extreme baskall unicycle act.
Oh, that's so.
And that was by accident. Yeah, and that was by accident.
A wonderful, happy accident in circus. I can't say like how many times I've like done something like, in hand balancing or, just training, and how many things I have learned by accident. It's like the best things I've learned sometimes, in originating kind of skills and such have come from making mistakes and come from doing the thing that I don't normally do. And I love hearing that, because that's just, to me, that's so circus. Everyone's like, that's not how we planned it, but somebody kind of did something a little bit off, and then we just kept it going.
Boom, there it goes, right?
Yeah, you never know what's going to be the shot. I was going to ask you, Kip, I don't know if you saw it the other day, but Obama put up a pretty good shot and had everybody around him hurting. And
right, and he did that on the fly. He did that on the fly.
It totally reminded me of the King Charles Troupe in our conversation that we were going to have today.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, he can still get. I don't know if he could do it on a unicycle, but
right.
But it was a fabulous moment, I think, within this last couple of days.
It's just one of those things that just give you inspiration. When you see it in the moment, because it's just something that just comes out of left field, and it catches you by surprise, and you're taken back, and your breath is caught short. Just seeing it in motion, and as he made the basketball hoop, and then walked out after that.
He just walked out, grabbed his coffee, put his face mask back on.
Very casually.
Yeah, very casually, very nonchalant.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, something else that we're very proud of, and I got to give a shout out to, because if I don't, I know I will hear it after this podcast. Is our shout out to our lady female riders, and they were better known as the Queen Charles Troupe, and they actually were formed in the early 1970s, and they were around for a good number of years. But we did have an all-female troupe at the time.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yes, I mentioned that at the start of the podcast, and I love that you had the Queen Charles Troupe and that it still exists to this day, obviously.
Yeah, we do still have a couple of members that are around these days, but we would really like to, try to reach out back out to the community sometime soon and be able to, bring in, a new set of young female writers and teach and pass down the skill to them.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, listen up, ladies. If you're out there and you're inspired to hop on your unicycle and, try and combine it with your fabulous basketball skills, you've got that good gymnastics background, that acrobatic background. They
Exactly.
are looking for you. I would love to see another new robust generation of the Queen Charles Troupe. That would be just fabulous.
Indeed.
Yes. Well, I wanted to ask Kip, what can the creation of the King Charles Troupe to help in impacting the youth in the Bronx community teach others seeking to inspire their communities through circus? That was, if you want to maybe segue back also to the inception of the King Charles Troupe and how it got its name and combining that with its impact on the youth during that time, and what was the intention and the goal behind it, and then how can that model be used to continue to generate and expand today in today's climate and environment with our youth?
Yeah, sure. So again, it all starts with an idea, and Jerry King had this idea since he was a young youth himself. Again, he never was able to learn to ride a unicycle back then because he wasn't allowed to. But again, as he grew older into manhood, he took that passion and bought bicycle parts from the local bicycle shop and made a unicycle for his 5-year-old son Charles when he brought him out to the park that famed summer. So, again, it just all boils down to, people taking the time out to be able to reach back and bring people along, for the ride. It doesn't matter how long that they are around for that ride, but as long as they're able to pull some life learned lessons that will help them overcome obstacles in their lives, as they get older and mature. And I think for us, again, this helped with, leadership qualities, team building, being able to persist when there are roadblocks put in front of you by others or society itself, that we are a group of amazing people that have overcome, obstacles, since, we landed here on this country as a people. So I would just, extend to, the grown-ups out there that might have, that might be coming around, just the kid, that they walk past on a regular day, just stop sometime just to talk to them and, see what's on their mind, just be an ear to listen on, what things, that they're having problems with, cause you never know that, you can, touch the heart of a young person, and that might spark them to start, dreaming about things that they'd like to aspire to one day. So it's just, a matter of just taking the time and just make time for, our youth, because all they need is just an avenue to be able to, get that spark in order to, dream and dream big.
Yes, it's so important. Thank you for sharing that, Kip. Everybody is very much looking for a way forward, and with such an amazing example from the King Charles Troupe, I think there's so much to learn. And so much to invest in what Jerry King was able to do so many years ago, right? This is again reminding people when they feel like it's too difficult now. I always remind them, well, it could have felt even too difficult then.
Then, right?
And with being able to organize and to deal with the adverse effects of the environment during those times. I mean, we definitely have a leg up in other ways now that we didn't have before. And obviously we're dealing with other things that are more, I wouldn't say more difficult, but just different, different difficulties. But it was so exceptional what the King Charles Troupe was able to do in giving, youth opportunity, expanding their horizons, giving them skill. I mean, even for myself, I didn't come from a very, I would say, disadvantaged background. I was like middle class, but the things that I think it still did keep me from by, getting into a sport and having discipline and having mentors and having coaches that instilled all of those values in me too, in the way that the King Charles Troupe did was so important and valuable. I mean, I always say I don't know, what my path would have been. I think it would have always been somewhat really great because I had a lot of great people in my life, but I cannot diminish the impact that was done by having that structure, that focus, and then just the overall motivation with others inspired to see me grow and learn something that I enjoyed to do.
Yep. That's a pleasure there. Yep.
Yeah. So the King Charles Troupe was performing with Ringling until it closed recently, and also has performed previously with Universal Circus, the only Black-owned circus in the world. How important has it been to continue the legacy with its current generation, and how have you sought to do that during these current times, Kip?
Yeah, I mean, it's very important to continue the legacy, because as I mentioned, we're now in a fifth generation since the inception in 1958 of this man's idea has kind of filtrated itself into the community and been able to inspire other youth to pick up a unicycle and do these amazing things. Although we're not athletes in our own right, but we're like non-competitive athletes, as you can probably attest to, with the number of shows we've done over the years, especially with being with Ringling, doing over 300 plus shows a year, 12 plus shows a week. Exactly. You know the routine when it comes to performing. So we may not have been professional athletes, but non-competitive athletes, none the same. The type of regiments that we've gone through. But not to knock it or anything, but because it's been a pleasure to have participated in this category itself as a performer. Again, we've met, wonderful people. We've done wonderful things. We've been to wonderful places. We perform for, large audiences alike in this country and abroad. So again, the legacy is important because it's like, you're handing down. It's almost like the human cell. When the human cell learns, then it passes down, to the other cells, so they learn. It's basically the same thing. We're trying to pass on the legacy, so it will continue. And we still, continue to promote decency, character building, just being, just building, better citizens in the community.
Beautiful. Well, 2020 is a big year for the King Charles Troupe in terms of recognition. You have some pretty remarkable things that happened this year. The King Charles Troupe was inducted into the Circus Ring of Fame.
Yes.
Do you want to speak a little bit about that,
Sure.
Kip?
Yeah, so as of January 2020 of this year, we joined a host of inductees of the Circus Ring of Fame. This year, it's a honorary award that is given to individual and group acts that have made contributions in the circus community. And we were definitely humbled to have been recognized and voted on, because it is a voting process that takes place by the board of the Circus Ring of Fame, which is collectively made up of other artists, well-known artists in the industry. So again, it was a pleasure for us to have participated. And now that we have a plaque now embedded in the cement in Sarasota in St. Armand Square. So if you're ever down in St. Armand Square in Sarasota, it's a big circle park that's lined by all of the inductees over the years into the Circus Ring of Fame. So it's definitely something worth seeing. And we hope to, be able to still, inspire and, and make, additional contributions, in the circus world as we speak.
That's phenomenal. And congratulations, Kip.
Thank you.
2020 also marks your 50th anniversary of the King Charles Troupe. No, I cannot. I mean,
where does the time go?
50 years. 50 years and still going.
It just takes my breath away sometimes. I know.
Wow.
Hopefully we will go take it to another 5 more generations, God willing.
Yes, I have no doubt. Absolutely. I mean, I don't see why not. And I don't think you can go for another 50.
Exactly. Well, as long as I keep riding the unicycle, that's my fountain of youth, I always say so.
Well, and another achievement this year is the NYC Council has approved co-naming street rights for Clinton Avenue between East 170th Street and Crotona Park South in the Bronx to be named the King Charles Troupe Way. Yeah,
right. That is such a honor to be able to go back to the community and be able to see that street named the King Charles Troupe Way. And again, this happened during COVID. So the official release date has not been announced as of yet, just because they're still not okaying, large gatherings of any sort. But hopefully, God willing, either sometime toward the latter part of this year or more realistically, probably first quarter of next year is when they'll make the announcement that 177th Street and Clinton Avenue in the Bronx will be named the King Charles Unicycle Troupe Way.
Wow. That is so special. I can't imagine what that'll feel like when you finally see it, when you have the ceremony. I mean, wow.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a harmonious time for us, especially as we reflect back on our mentor, Jerry King, with all the hard work and vice money that he took out of his own pocket, to put back into the community, to be able to allow, these kids to be able to flourish and be productive.
Well, the last thing on the list of huge accomplishments for the King Charles Troupe this year, I'm not done yet. There is the National Museum of American History in D.C. I kind of jumbled that, so excuse me.
No worries.
Will present an exhibit featuring the King Charles Troupe history. And can you tell us a little bit about that, Kip? That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's something that we are collaborating with the American Museum of Natural History in D.C. And along with the Feld family, the parent company of Ringling Bros and Barnum Bailey Circus, which will donate some vintage costumes to the display. It'll also house a old Schwinn unicycle from the 1970s, and as well as some other artifacts and memorabilia that will showcase the troupe's history from 1969 all the way to present date. So we're very excited about that, and we definitely look forward to making that announcement when a press release has been provided on when the official exhibit display will be put on display.
And I mean, that's a first, right?
Yes.
Has that ever happened before?
No, not for us. That is the first for the troupe. So we are definitely stoked about that opportunity and the honor for our legacy to be showcased in perpetuity, in the Museum of American National History.
And I mean, in terms of circus history, that's just incredibly profound as well, right?
Yeah, indeed. It almost validates us as performers, and not just the troupe, but just all circus performers on the trials and tribulations that we went through, to make it to that point to be recognized by this institution.
Yeah, absolutely. After 50 years and trailblazing the way that you have, the first all-black troupe for Ringling Brothers. I mean, congratulations. Thank you. Grateful that that the troupe is being recognized, and I look forward to seeing when that's going to be released and getting the press release, and what the exhibit will look like as well. I've got family in DC, so nice. I will be letting them all know that they need to come out and support.
Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely keep you and everybody in the loop when that day is made known to us as well. So definitely.
Oh, wonderful. Well, you've alluded to this and you've spoken about it, Kip, but it's been such a year for the King Charles Troupe. Even within such a difficult year, there's such a silver lining with how much, recognition.
Isn't it always, right? Yeah, right. Isn't it always?
It's just always quite something. And so there's light to look at. And there's history and legacy to look at too, to be proud of, to remember, and to help us to, push ourselves and be carried through by your legacy. As we are all reflecting so much this year on the historical contributions of so many that have come before us, like you have, that have propped us all up to give us our circus careers. And so how has that felt in cementing the legacy of the troupe, Kip?
Well, I don't think our job is done. We're still, trying to push forward, to make better roads for the youth in our community. And we have just been fortunate as individuals to come into the grace of this opportunity with the unicycle and being a part of the circus community that, we hope to be able to continue forward as individuals, as people, continuing to grow, continuing to inspire, and continuing to, help your fellow, person, whether, whatever their individualities are, whatever their differences might be, is that, we have to just look back and be able to treat each other, as equal and be able to live, amongst each other, without conflict.
Yes. Well, we're having powerful conversations in circus and around diversity, inclusion, and representation, conversations that I'm grateful for. And what do these conversations mean to you, though, being from your generation, Kip? You spoke about moving forward, in such a beautiful way. You're just right now with your comments, but I want to say that, whenever I look to the past of Black circus culture, I can never not look at the fact that how we are still so underrepresented, even
Right.
with such
Mm-hmm.
famous and dynamic acts as the King Charles Troupe, and we are still having firsts as Black artists and artists of color. It's really, unbelievable, and King Charles was a powerful first. Why do you think that is, Kip? And how can we continue to develop a new way forward? Can you expand on what you just put so beautifully into words?
Sure. So I don't know if the troupe was ever put together to, be that type of beacon that we just spoke of, but for whatever reason, that light, was shined upon the team, and the team took it gracefully, knowing or not knowing, that this
Right.
would be, the troupe's livelihood to be able to inspire other individuals, not just being youth, but other individuals in the circus community, especially of color. That, it all boils down to having, these conversations, and they're going to be uncomfortable conversations. It's nothing different than, speaking to someone for the first time, how it could be uncomfortable. But these are conversations that are necessary, for us as we kind of dive deep into underlying, behaviors that we either know of or don't know of on how, we react or treat people. So, I look forward to these conversations as they develop, and as even people of Caucasian are now realizing, these underlying issues that have still continue to reside within, our nation, even after the 60s and after the civil rights and marches and voting rights, is that we still, have these behaviors that linger behind and unfortunately have festered now with the current age. But I feel very hopeful, especially with more people coming to the table, not just people of color, but people of non-color coming to help address these issues, and how can we, defeat this type of, behavior, and just for people to be able to flourish on their characteristics and their talents, and not of just color.
Yes. And it's beautiful seeing the circus community come together. And I'm hopeful with all the conversations that we're having and we continue to have. And everyone's really, stepping forward. They have been this past year, and stepping up and being willing and open to engage with this dialogue, which I also am so inspired by and hopeful about. I really am. I've really seen a lot of innovation come through during this time with so many people within the circus community wondering how they can do it better, how they can get it right, and how they can do it, alongside us, because we're all in this together. And I think we have a really profound way forward, and getting some concrete solutions moving forward too, which I'm very excited to continue to see develop over time. And like we know, things don't happen overnight.
Right.
But the thing is that they do happen, and
exactly.
We're all in this for the long haul and for the long road. I mean, King Charles Troupe is now here 50 years. There's sustainability in all of our efforts, with enough inspiration, passion, commitment, support. There can be generations to come that will benefit from all the things that we're doing now. So I'm very hopeful. about this time for the circus community and in its efforts in expanding inclusion, diversity, representation. So so I wanted to also ask you, Kip, how
Sure.
can we find you? How can, those that are interested in the King Charles Troupe get in contact with you, get involved, train with you, and eventually become a king or queen? What does that look like? Ending on a lighter note.
Yeah, so people could reach out to us on Facebook at King Charles Unicycle Troupe. You can also reach us through Instagram as well at King Charles Troupe. And anyone that's also interested can also email us at King Charles Troupe. That's KINGCHARLES Troupe, TROUPE @gmail.com.
Fabulous. And for my last question, because the unicycle is so unique, do you have any unicycle training tips for our listeners that are seeking to do unicycle or are heavy into unicycling? I mean, we are speaking to a unicycle master, so I don't think that I could let you leave this conversation without asking you for some unicycle tips that I will keep, I will file in my cabinet so that I can also give to others when I come in contact with them.
Well, if you don't have a hallway, the way we learned so many years ago, you can always use a fence to help guide you. You want to keep your thighs tight on the seat. And at first try, the unicycle is going to feel like a horse, like it's going to try to buck you and get away from you and pull away from you. But it's all core resistance. Is just tightening up your legs and your hips, and just being able to control the seat from moving from you. And you just pedal along slowly until, you start to get more comfortable with it. But the first thing is definitely just, overcoming the fear of, trying it for the first time. So, I definitely urge you to at least give it a try once and just, jump on it. Again, remember to keep your legs and thighs locked close on the seat so the seat doesn't pull away from you. And, just gradually just take slow pedals going forward.
How long did it take you, Kip, before your thighs were not burning from?
Yeah, it's an interesting question you ask, because everybody in the troupe have adapted differently to it. For me, just to learn to ride straight, it took me 3 months. Some people, it takes longer. Some people, it takes shorter. We just seem to always had a knack to develop our skills very quickly on the unicycle. So, knock on wood for that. And then, when it comes down to, our practices, we used to do some of the most rigorous practicing on unicycles. We used to ride on cobblestone streets to develop our balance. We used to hold bricks in our hands as we rode to develop our core and balance. So, we went through some really, army tactics, if you will, going through unicycling training back in the day.
Wow, I can imagine. I mean, you make it look like completely effortless when you're out there doing the show. So, I mean, and combining with basketball too. I mean, how long does it take before you start combining it with basketball?
Well, as juniors in the second generation, it took us probably a good 2 solid years of just practicing before we actually got into or was allowed to replace one of the veteran members in Ringling Brothers in the center ring in the act.
Wow, 2 years?
Yeah, good solid 2 years.
Wow,
that's how strict the original team was. If we wanted to get into the act one day, we were going to have to put in the work.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Well, and what is kind of like your lead-in time now in current times? Is it different?
We probably don't practice as hard. This is a different generation of kids now, so they don't react the way we used to react. back when we were 15. So, we have to water down the training a little bit.
I think that's consistent across the board. From my generation, we can't even, think to push the kids out. I was pushed, and that was just, 20 years ago when I was competing, getting to where I got to, and it's already, things that are off limits, I think.
Right. But I still have hope with this generation, so I still have hope.
Oh yes. Yeah, they're phenomenal, and it's different. It's just all different, and I'm happy for them too in some ways that it's different. But I was curious in how you have adapted that, and how you've kind of innovated the model over the years, because it's so different. It's just so unique. It really is.
Right. But I will tell you that the basic foundation practice structure for the troupe has always been our figure eights. If you ever catch us in practice one day, you'll just see 10 guys doing, a minute figure eight, 3 minutes figure eights, 5 minutes, because that is basically the foundation. Whether we do small circles, big circles in the act, it's all, consistent of, doing figure eights in the routine.
Well, I don't think that will be me doing any figure eights anytime soon.
Well, you never know. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, I think I've been on the unicycle. I've been on it a couple of times throughout my career, and of course it was an interesting and like scary challenge, like what you were talking about before. But it was a worthy challenge when I did it. But yeah, that was my goodness. It's quite something, and I thank you again, Kip,
no
for
problem. It's my
coming
pleasure,
on
Shenea.
the show and for paving the way for artists of color within the circus arts and performing arts. I'm so honored by your legacy and continued legacy of the King Charles Troupe, and for all that you've done over the 50 years and all that you continue to do for 50 years down the line. And I hope that it just continues to have, several generations that continue to be unicyclers and, pick up the ball.
Yeah. So, thank you again, Shenea. It's been a pleasure speaking with you as well, being in your grace and honor for all the achievements that you've done in the gymnastic community, as well as the circus community.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Kip.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast, where I interviewed director of the King Charles Unicycle Troupe, Kip Jones. The Live Like an Acrobat podcast is also available on Circus Talk, the inclusive, independent, and international online network for the circus industry. Circus Talk's mission is to create a level playing field for this industry and democratize access to information. Please consider subscribing to the Live Like an Acrobat podcast and to the CircuspreneurBlog.com, where you will find extended conversations and interactive content of each episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast. I'm your host, Shenea Stiletto, and until next time, please stay safe and stay healthy.